The Miami Marlins have been historically one of the worst teams in baseball since entering the league in 1993. The Marlins have only made the playoffs 3 times, albeit they won the World Series twice. With only one playoff appearance in the last 20 years, it's very clear that this team needs to build a winning identity and make the ballpark a place to be in South Beach. So with that being said, I would like to welcome everybody to the very first episode of the Miami Marlins franchise here on MLB The Show 23. I am stoked to get this series started, and I hope you guys are as well. Make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new for more MLB The Show 23 content. I think the Marlins are a very fascinating team because they play in a very big market city, but their budget is always towards the bottom. And their attendance numbers are also very poor. They don't get enough people to go to the ballpark. With the Major League season here, do you want to go to any baseball games or any other sporting event or concert? Well, I've got you covered with today's video sponsor, SeatGeek. SeatGeek is a ticketing app that takes the confusion out of buying tickets. SeatGeek will number each seat on a scale of 1 to 10, with a higher number being in green, being a better deal. The best part is, if you use my code Octagonal Gaming, you can get $20 off your first order. Again, that's code Octagonal Gaming, spelled as it is on screen, all caps, no spaces, for $20 off of your first order. Thanks again to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's video, and let's get back to the episode. For those of you who are new to the channel, let me give you the rundown of what to expect with this series. The 2 things that I really focus on in my franchises are realism and immersiveness. I make all of my roster moves in the name of realism. We're still going to be aggressive and we're still going to make big moves if the opportunity presents itself, but we're not going to trade for a bunch of superstars off the bat, and we're not going to trade for a bunch of top prospects off the bat either. We're going to build up this core that we have in a realistic way and hopefully eventually become a championship level team. I also pride myself on immersiveness. I love getting my subscribers involved, and you can get involved by joining my Discord server. The link is in the description, where you can make custom prospects who will eventually be added into the series. And who knows, maybe your custom player will end up with our Miami Marlins. Let's now go through an overview of our roster. Our team ranking is not horrible. We're the 20th ranked team in baseball. We've got a good young group of pitchers, but our lineup is aging and not great by any means, and the farm system is pretty weak. So we've got our hands full with this rebuild, but I'm excited for the challenge. As we take a look at the roster, there is a noticeable lack of high-end talent. We only have 2 players above an 80 overall, and we don't have many 8 potential prospects scattered throughout our organization. We do have 2 very good players here at the top who I'm really excited to build around going forward. I think it's only appropriate that we start our deep dive with Chisholm, the cover athlete of MLB The Show 23 and the anchor of our lineup going forward. Chisholm is a young, fun, electrifying ball player who is going to be the face of this organization going forward. Chisholm has mainly played the middle infield throughout his career. However, this season he will be moving over to center field. While it's now my team and I can play him wherever I want, the roster is built for him to play center field. So that's where he's going to play this season, but we know if that doesn't really work out, we can have him go back to second base or shortstop. What's not a question with him is his offensive ability. He is a great bat. He's got to improve against lefties. His plate skills are also rough. They could use some work too. But the pop is certainly there, and we really saw him break out last year as a first-time All-Star. He only played 60 games and missed the entire second half of the season with an injury, so I'm excited to see what he can do in a full season of ball. And I think he can really break out and turn into a star. Somebody who is already a bona fide superstar is the ace of our pitching staff, Sandy Alcantara, the reigning National League Cy Young winner. In today's baseball, if your starting pitcher goes 5 or 6 innings deep, that's a good start. For Sandy, 7 or 8 is the minimum you should expect with him. Alcantara's got 5 pitches. He throws harder than just about any starting pitcher in baseball. and he does not have any weaknesses to his game. Now, Alcantara has been really good for a while, but last season is really when he became a superstar, winning the National League Cy Young with nearly 230 innings pitched, more than anybody in baseball, 2.28 ERA, a whip right around 1. But again, he's been good for quite a while. In 2019, he was an all-star. In 2020 and 2021, he was a very solid starter for Miami, and obviously last year he was great. The best part about Alcantara is his contract. He is on a bargain, 5-year team-friendly deal, so we have got him locked up for the next half-decade as the ace of our staff, and I'm really excited to build the pitching staff through Sandy Alcantara. We do have a really good group of young pitchers on the team and in the farm system, and I think a lot of these guys are going to be players who stick around for the duration of the rebuild. We'll start with the young lefty, Trevor Rogers, who's only 25 years old. In 2021, Rogers' first full season, he was fantastic. He made the All-Star team. He was phenomenal. However, he was a lot worse last year. I think he can pick himself back up to that 2021 status as he's got a good blend of 4 pitches, and it's really important to have good lefties within your rotation. Rogers has 4 more years of team control left on his contract, so it won't be a while until we need to pay him the big bucks. Rogers will be entering arbitration this upcoming offseason. Another young lefty we have is 25-year-old Jesus Luzardo. He was acquired at the trade deadline in 2021 from the Oakland Athletics in exchange for Starling Marte. Luzardo is basically a failing top prospect with the A's. However, a fresh start in Miami has completely rejuvenated his career. Last year, he pitched in 18 games and was really solid. Around 100 innings of work, 3.32 ERA, and a whip barely above 1. Luzardo also has 4 more years of team control and will be entering the opening stages of arbitration this offseason. So again, we do not have to worry about giving him a big extension for quite a while. The next guy we're going to be taking a look at is Edward Cabrera. He's been a highly regarded prospect in the Marlins organization for a number of years. Last season, he finally got a real opportunity in the big league rotation, and he pitched very well. There's real reason to be optimistic about Edward Cabrera, who's got 6 years of team control, to be a guy who can be an all-star caliber pitcher alongside the other guys we have in our rotation. Now, Cabrera's sample size is not large. He pitched in under 72 innings last year, but he had an ERA only barely above 3 and a whip barely above 1. Cabrera's got 5 pitches and is the type of upside that you really want to bank on. I really think he can progress into an all-star within the next year or two. So that poses the question of who will be the 5th starter with those 4 guys. I think the 2 reasonable candidates are Braxton Garrett and Johnny Cueto. For now, I think it'll be Johnny Cueto who occupies that 5th spot into the rotation. Johnny Cueto's been around the block. He's 37 years old, and he has been pitching in the majors for a long time. I think having a veteran like him to work with the younger guys into the rotation is going to be really good. Cueto's been pitching since 2008, and if you look at his prime, 2011 through 2016, there are not many better pitchers during that stretch. And even since then, he's had some good seasons, including last year at 36 years old with the Chicago White Sox. It's like he hadn't missed a beat. With him being 37, he's obviously not going to be a long-term piece and could be a guy we dish out at the deadline, but I really like his value to mentor some of the younger guys. Braxton Garrett, meanwhile, will be the long reliever to start off the season. Garrett was a first-round pick a number of years ago by the Marlins and has developed into a pretty good player. In 17 starts last year, he was quite good with an ERA at 3.58. Unfortunately for him, we don't have any room in the rotation, so he will start the year in the bullpen. Those 6 guys will start the year on the big league club, but there are some pitchers in the farm system I am excited about. Sixto Sanchez, to me, is a major wild card. At one point in time, Sanchez was one of the best pitching prospects in baseball. However, he has not gotten away from the injury bug with only a 66 durability rating. Sixto Sanchez has not pitched in a professional game since 2020. He has dealt with numerous injuries since then, but here in 2023, it looks like he is going to be back. He is going to start the season in the minors. Hopefully he can get back to speed. And eventually, assuming all goes well, he will be brought back up to the bigs, and I really think he can be a long-term piece in the rotation. It's just about staying healthy with him because he's had a very hard time of doing that these past few seasons. The prospect I'm most excited about in this entire organization is without a doubt Yuri Perez, the 19-year-old starting pitching prospect, the only A potential prospect in the entire organization. He's the only top 50 prospect as well, currently ranked at number 10. The only pitchers ahead of him right now are Grayson Rodriguez and Andrew Painter. There's a good reason why Perez is one of the 10 best prospects in all of baseball. At 6'8", 200 pounds, he's built like an NBA small forward. At his age, he is incredibly advanced. Last year as an 18-year-old, he dominated in Double-A. That is not normal for the average 18-year-old. Perez will likely start this season in either Double-A or Triple-A. I'm not entirely sure yet, but I assume by the end of the year he will certainly be in AAA, and I think realistically we can expect him to be called up to the big leagues in 2024. I think Perez can absolutely be a high-end starter next to Sandy Alcantara and the other young guys we have. Max Meyer is an interesting prospect as well. We know Meyer pretty well on this channel, as we had him in our MLB The Show 21 franchise with the Baltimore Orioles, where he developed into a pretty good player. Now, Meyer's going to be facing some early roadblocks. He suffered an injury last summer, he got Tommy John surgery, and in real life, he will not be pitching this year. To keep things realistic, he will not be pitching in our series this year either, so we will keep him in Single A. It certainly sucks for his development, but hopefully he can come back strong once we get into Season 2 and develop into a good big league arm. So with Perez and Meyer, there are some other solid pitching prospects within the farm system. Nobody else as good as them. But I think guys like Jake Eater and Dax Fulton are certainly going to be two names to watch down the board. As we take a look at our bullpen, it's not great, but there are some solid guys in here, including Dylan Floro. The 32-year-old righty will be the full-time closer this year. Now, Floro is a free agent at the end of the season. If he performs well this year, he could be a possible trade deadline guy, assuming the team is not contending for a wild card spot. Floro's been with Miami for 2 years and has been really solid in both seasons. We could always extend him as well if we see him as a building block, but with him being 33 next year, I'm not sure if that's likely. The highest rated non-closer out of the bullpen is Anthony Bender. He is also coming back from Tommy John surgery and will not pitch this year, so we're going to be relying on some other guys, including A.J. Puck, who's a very fascinating player. Puck was acquired in a trade this offseason with the Oakland Athletics in exchange for outfielder J.J. Bleday. Puck has been a highly regarded prospect for a while and really has not developed. However, last year he was quite solid. He broke out with a 3.12 ERA. At one point it looked like he was going to be a really good starting pitcher, and I don't think it's realistic to expect him to be a high-end starter. But if he can develop into a good reliever, then he can completely rip off the bust label that a lot of people currently have on him. Stephen Olkert, Matt Barnes, JT Chargois, and Tanner Scott will conclude the rest of the bullpen. We've got some guys in the farm system who could challenge for spots such as Tommy Nance, Oscar Brazoban, who pitched pretty well in the majors last year. Now let's take a look at the position players. I think our offense is a lot worse than our pitchers. As we look at the catcher position, I think Nick Fortes will be getting a lot of the starts there. Jacob Stallings is also here too, but I think it would make a lot more sense to really focus on Fortes' development. He's only 26 years old. He's got pretty good hitting ratings for a catcher. And while last year he was pretty mediocre with a sub-700 OPS, I do think he can develop, and having a guy like Jacob Stallings who can always platoon will be nice. The Marlins don't have any good catching prospects here, although in real life, they do have a good one with Joe Mack, who is not currently in the game because the base rosters are not very good. I will make sure to add Mack along with any other notable missing prospect before we get to the next episode. Let's look at first base now with Garrett Cooper and Yuli Gurriel. We'll start with Garrett Cooper, who very quietly made the All-Star team last year. Now at 32 years old, Cooper's on the last year of his contract and will be a free agent this offseason. He's a solid offensive player, particularly against lefties. And while he's not spectacular, he certainly gets the job done in the middle of the lineup. I think Cooper could have value at the trade deadline if he is performing well Unless, obviously, we're making a push for a playoff spot, then obviously we would hold on to him, and then he'll be a free agent next year. As for Yuli Gurriel, he is 38 years old, but I still think he can provide us some value. Gurriel's another good bat who has been with the Houston Astros over the last 6 years. The Astros made the World Series 4 times during that stretch, winning it twice. All of Gurriel's best seasons are during odd years. 2017, 2019, 2021. Hopefully the trend continues of Gurriel, who's only under contract here for 1 year. Other than those two, we don't have any notable first base prospects. Moving over to second base, Luis Arraez will be the full-time starter at the position. Arraez was acquired in an offseason trade with Minnesota in exchange for Pablo Lopez. Arraez won the batting title last year, and ironically, Yuli Gurriel won it the year before. Arraez hits for great contact. His contact against righties, plate vision, and clutch rating are all 99. He very rarely swings and misses and is the perfect guy to have lead off at the top of the order. Arraez does not have a lot of power, nor is he a great defender, but he's a really, really solid contact hitter who can be very reliable and consistently hit above 300. He's got 2 more years after this one of team control and will then be a free agent. We've got multiple intriguing prospects here behind him, including Xavier Edwards, another player who we know from our Baltimore Orioles franchise from MLB The Show 21. Edwards is 23, and we're hoping that he can break out sooner than later. He's a very solid switch-hitting second baseman who can also play short, solid glove, very fast, really good contact hitter, and decent enough power as well. Khalil Watson, I think, has a lower floor than Edwards, but a higher ceiling. At one point in time, Watson was a contender for the number 1 overall pick in the 2021 MLB draft. He fell all the way to the 16th pick, where the Marlins scooped him up. Last year, his first full professional season went pretty poorly. Watson did not play well. He was also suspended after making a threat towards an official. He wanted to do the old 1-2 Ja Morant. But I do think Khalil Watson's ceiling is really high, and he could be a very good second baseman for us in the future, although he's probably 3 or 4 years away. At third base, Jean Segura will be the everyday guy for likely the next 2 seasons. Segura's been in the big leagues for over a decade now with a number of different teams. He spent the past 4 seasons in Philadelphia with the Phillies before signing a 2-year, $17 million deal in the offseason here with the Marlins. Segura is a very all-around solid player. He hasn't had an OPS above 800 since 2016, but he hasn't had his OPS below 700 since 2015. So he's very steady, very consistent. You know what you're going to get out of him, and I think he can be a solid veteran within the lineup for likely the next 2 seasons. Behind him, we have Joey Wendell, who will mostly be playing at shortstop. He will start against right-handed pitchers at shortstop this year. The Westchester alum is on the final year of his deal before he becomes a free agent. Wendell's a solid contact hitter, okay defense. The rest of this game is solid. He doesn't really do anything special, but he's an all-around decent player. The guy who I'm really excited about here at third base is Jacob Berry. In my opinion, he is the best hitting prospect in our organization. Berry was a top 10 pick in last year's draft out of LSU. The big, switch-hitting third baseman has the potential to be our long-term starter at the position. He's got really good power for his age, decent contact, decent plate skills, and solid defense as well. Along with playing third, he can also play the corner outfield spots. Joe Rizzo behind him is a decent prospect as well. Let's move over to shortstop now. As I said earlier, I think Joey Wendell will be starting a majority of games at short, but when it's not him, it'll often be Jose Iglesias, who was recently signed to a 1-year deal. Iglesias is a decent veteran. He's been around the block on a number of different teams and is a solid player. Pretty good contact hitter, pretty good plate skills, and pretty good defense. John Birdie's a solid guy to have here as well. Birdie is one of the fastest players in baseball. He stole over 40 bases a season ago, and with the bases being even bigger, you'd think his stolen base rate might go even higher. Along with that, Birdie's a very versatile defender, so while he will not start for us very often, he could be a really good late-inning guy as a pinch runner and then a defensive substitution. Then we have Garrett Hampson, who at one point in time was a top prospect for the Colorado Rockies. Things did not really work out, and Hampson was let go of this past offseason by the Rockies, where the Marlins have decided to give him a second chance. Although he is already 28 years old, I think with his athleticism and defensive versatility, he could become a pretty solid major league player. We do have some good prospects here at shortstop as well, including Jordan Groshans, who was acquired a couple years ago in a trade with the Toronto Blue Jays. Groshans hits for solid contact, decent glove. His power leaves a little bit to be desired for, but he did play decently well last year in 17 major league games, hitting .262, albeit with a low OPS. Jacob Amaya is solid as well, but the player I'm most intrigued by of this group of prospects is 20-year-old Yidi Cape from Cuba. Cape's got a really good glove. I think defensively he would be able to hold up at shortstop in the majors. He hits for solid contact, and his power is certainly improving. Let's go to the outfield now. In left field, we have two very solid young pieces, and we will start with 26-year-old Brian De La Cruz. This is a really solid piece for our team's future, in my opinion. De La Cruz hits for good contact, pretty good power, and he's got a good arm in the outfield. Last year was his first full season in the big leagues, and he hit .252 with a 725 OPS. Not great, not horrible. He really needs to improve on his plate discipline, as he walked less than 20 times in over 300 at-bats. Not good. Jesus Sanchez is a guy I'm very excited about having on the team. For those of you who were here for my Guardians franchise last year in MLB The Show 22, you guys probably know Jesus Sanchez pretty well, and I'm excited to use him here once again. Sanchez does not have as good of base ratings as he did in MLB The Show 22, but I still really like what he can do for our future. He's only 25 years old. He's got great pop, especially against right-handed hitting, and he's got a really good glove. He's also got a really good arm. He needs to improve against lefties. He also needs to improve his plate skills in a drastic way. After a very solid 2021 season, he was not very good last year with a .214 average and a sub-700 OPS. We're certainly hoping he can get back to his 2021 self. And I think both Sanchez and De La Cruz, who each have 5 years of team control, will get a lot of opportunities this season in the big leagues. Peyton Burdick is probably the other notable name here as we move over to center. We already talked about Jazz Chisholm, of course. He's going to be great. We've got some solid prospects here, including Victor Mesa Jr. and Victor Mesa, both of whom I feel like have been with the Marlins organization forever. Anthony Piguero is also pretty solid. He was recently signed as an international free agent and is only 18 years old. As we move over to right field, we've got some older guys here with Avisail Garcia and Jorge Soler. They may not be as young as De La Cruz and Sanchez and don't have the upside that those two do, but I think these two guys can be solid veteran players. At 31 years old, I think Garcia can still be a pretty solid player. Good all-around bat, solid glove as well. This is a guy who's going to play pretty much every day and is going to be hopefully a solid outfielder for us for a little while. Now, the problem is he is coming off a horrific 2022, and this is a guy who's got a good track record. He's been in the majors for around a decade, and he's been a solid player, mainly with the White Sox. 2021, he had a great season with the Brewers, but last year he was horrible, and he's got 4 more years of a very expensive contract with over $50 million left. So if he plays anywhere near like he did in 2022, this contract could be a disaster. I think Garcia will ultimately play a lot better than he did last year, but that contract still looks like a really, really bad one that we're going to have to navigate through because I don't think we're going to be able to trade that contract away. We've also got Jorge Soler, who's got that Soler power. 99 power against lefties, only 62 against righties. Jorge Soler can hit dingers. He can't do a whole lot else. He's not a good contact hitter, inconsistent defensively. He does have a pretty strong arm, though. Soler at one point in time was a top prospect with the Cubs organization, and I wouldn't say he ended up as a bust. He is a 2-time World Series champion. He won one in 2016. In 2019, he led the big leagues in home runs with 48 and had an OPS above 900. In 2021, he was traded at the deadline to the Atlanta Braves, and it was a big reason why they won the World Series, ultimately winning the World Series MVP, large in part to that huge home run he had early in the decisive Game 6. He then signed a 3-year deal with the Marlins, was pretty bad last year, and has 2 more years left on his deal. It's not as bad of a contract as Garcia's, but still not great. The best outfield prospect we have is Errar Encarnacion, who has been a solid prospect with this organization for a couple years. Played 23 games in the majors last year. Wasn't very good. Will probably start the season in the minors, but I do think he can develop into a pretty good player. So there's the roster. That's what we'll be working with here for Season 1 of the Marlins franchise. And it's not going to be easy in a loaded NFC East that has 3 legitimate World Series contenders. The Nationals are the worst team in the game. They're not very good. But you have the New York Mets, who are going to Met their way into an NLDS exit, but they're still a threat to win 95 games this year. The Braves are loaded. They're the number 1 ranked team in the game, and they're going to be loaded for the future because of all these team-friendly contracts. I think the Braves are by far the biggest long-term threat in this division to ultimately stay as a contender. And then you had the reigning National League champion Philadelphia Phillies, who made the World Series a season ago, pushed the Astros to 6, and signed Trey Turner in the offseason. The Phillies were not great last year in the regular season, but with Turner, I think they can be quite a bit better. So before we wrap up, I do want to go over sort of how the series will be structured. Normally, I play 2 games per episode. That's what I've done throughout my MLB The Show series in the past, and that will likely stick. I do want to move a little bit faster, though. Normally, I get through 5 or 6 seasons in a series before getting into the long-term sim, but I want to do more here with the Marlins because in baseball, things take a little bit longer to happen and players take a little longer to develop. I would love to go 7, 8, maybe even 9 seasons here. I'm also really going to put more focus into scouting. They completely overhauled the scouting system, which I made a video about that a couple of weeks ago. I'll leave a card at the top right of your screen if you want to check that out. But for my other franchise series on Madden and NBA 2K, I have prospect profiles where we go over players in the draft class, and I'm going to do something similar here. It won't be the exact same, but it'll be kind of similar. You guys will see as the series goes along. So I'm really excited to continue here with the Miami Marlins. Next episode, we will play opening day against the New York Mets, and then we'll probably make it through this series against the Giants. So that means we'll play one more game in the next episode against either the Twins, Phillies, Diamondbacks, or Giants. Let me know which of those 4 teams you would like to see us play against in the next episode. Also, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Of course, don't forget to use code Octagonal Gaming for $20 off your first SeatGeek order. And yeah, that'll wrap it up. Peace out.